Forget superfoods for a minute. Forget the powders, the berries shipped halfway around the world, and the little packages promising ancient wisdom at a modern price. More than 26 centuries ago, the prophet Ezekiel was told to make one bread from 6 humble ingredients and eat it during a period of 390 days. That sounds like the oldest nutrition plan on earth. It is not. The bread was not created for strength, beauty, or longer life. It was a warning. And once you read past the famous recipe, the story becomes far darker than anything printed on a bread bag. Today, we are going to make that bread as faithfully as a safe modern kitchen allows. But first, you need to know why Ezekiel was making it, because without the next few verses, this loaf means the exact opposite of what most people think. Ezekiel was living among Jewish exiles in Babylon in the 6th century before Christ. Jerusalem still stood, but judgment was coming. God told the prophet to take a clay tablet, draw Jerusalem upon it, and build a tiny siege around it, a model city, little ramps, enemy camps, battering rams. Then Ezekiel himself became part of the sign. He was commanded to lie on his left side for 390 days, bearing the iniquity of Israel in a public act no neighbor could ignore. Whether this happened every hour of every day or at appointed periods, the food instruction is unmistakable. During those 390 days, this was the bread assigned to him: wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, and a final grain translated as spelt in many Bibles and emmer in others. 6 ingredients in one vessel. Now that sounds abundant until you understand a siege. In an ordinary kitchen, wheat might be stored in one jar, barley in another, beans and lentils somewhere else. But when an army surrounds your walls, the good flour disappears first. Then the barley runs low. At last, you scrape the bottoms of every container and mix whatever remains because no single jar holds enough to make supper. This was not a perfect blend. It was the pantry after hope had begun to run out, and the amount was measured. Ezekiel received 20 shekels of food by weight each day. Ancient weights varied, but that comes to roughly 8 ounces, or about 230 grams. Set 8 ounces of bread on a plate and look at it. That was not breakfast. That was the day. His water was measured too, 1/6 of a hin, approximately 20 fluid ounces, or 6/10 of a liter. Less than many of us carry in a bottle without thinking. Bread by weight, water by measure. Every swallow counted. There is your first surprise. Ezekiel bread was not the food of abundance. It was the taste of scarcity. But the detail most advertisements leave out comes next. Ezekiel was told to bake the cakes over human waste as fuel, a picture of the defilement Israel would experience among foreign nations. Ezekiel protested. He had guarded the purity of his food since youth. God permitted him to use dried cow dung instead. The dung was fuel, not an ingredient. Let us be plain about that. Dried animal dung has long been used as cooking fuel where wood is scarce. We will use an oven, thank you kindly. Some historical details may remain historical. So what is the original recipe? Here is the honest answer. Scripture gives us the 6 ingredients, the daily ration, and the kind of cake Ezekiel baked. It does not give proportions. Anyone claiming to possess God's exact percentages is filling in a blank the text leaves open. Our reconstruction keeps every named ingredient, removes the modern extras, and produces a coarse flatbread closer to siege food than to a soft sandwich loaf. You will need 1 cup of whole wheat flour, half a cup of barley flour, half a cup of spelt or emmer flour, and 1/4 cup of millet flour. Then add half a cup of cooked lentils and half a cup of cooked fava or cannellini beans, both drained well and mashed smooth. Have about 3/4 of a cup of water nearby, though you may not need every drop. And please hear an old kitchen rule before we go further. Do not grind raw kidney beans into flour and assume a quick bake makes them safe. Raw and undercooked beans can contain troublesome lectins. Properly cooked beans are the wiser choice for this reconstruction, and canned beans, rinsed and drained, work just fine. Mix the 4 flours in one bowl. There's that single vessel from the passage. Work in the mashed lentils and beans with your fingers. Add the water a little at a time until the mixture holds together. It will not feel like the springy white dough you may know. There is no added gluten, no yeast, no honey, no oil, and no salt in the biblical list. This dough is heavy, rough, and stubborn. I have kneaded enough bread before the first morning bell to know that dough tells the truth through your hands. A rich dough becomes smooth and generous. This one never does. It holds together because you insist upon it. Let it rest for 20 minutes so the grain can drink the water. Heat the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Divide the dough into 6 pieces and press each one into a round cake about 1/4 inch thick. Place them on a hot baking sheet or stone and bake for 18 to 22 minutes, turning once, until they are firm and dry at the edges. What comes out will not look like the tall brown loaf in the freezer aisle. It will be dense. The barley gives it an earthy bitterness. The millet adds a faint sweetness. The lentils and beans make it filling, but also heavier than ordinary bread. Without salt or oil, every grain stands bare. Truth be told, it is not terrible. Hunger has made far rougher meals precious, but it was never meant to make Ezekiel feel clever for discovering a superfood. Every bite carried the same message as the clay city and the measured water. Jerusalem would be surrounded. Food would be scarce. People would eat with anxiety and drink with dread. Modern Ezekiel bread is a different creation. The familiar commercial loaf is inspired by the verse, but it uses sprouted grains and legumes along with yeast, salt, added wheat gluten, and other choices that produce a practical sandwich bread. There is nothing wrong with enjoying it. Grains and legumes can complement one another nicely. But the Bible never says Ezekiel sprouted these ingredients, and it never presents the loaf as a cure, a cleanse, or a command for everybody's diet. That distinction matters. Scripture is not improved when we turn every difficult passage into a wellness slogan. At our table, the last hill of bread is never thrown away. It becomes crumbs, thickened soup, or waits for the birds after breakfast. Years of watching flour become dough will teach you gratitude, but Ezekiel's loaf teaches something sharper. There is a difference between choosing simplicity and having scarcity forced upon you. One can make the heart quiet. The other can fill a whole city with fear. So the next time you see Ezekiel 4 verse 9 printed on a package, remember verse 10. Remember the scale. Remember the small cup of water. Remember a prophet beside a clay model of Jerusalem, eating a ration that announced what was coming. 6 ingredients, 1 vessel, 8 ounces for the day, 390 days, not a superfood, a sermon made of bread. And perhaps that is why the recipe still holds us. Not because it promises that we will never be hungry, but because it asks whether we can remain faithful when even daily bread must be weighed. If you would like to keep uncovering the stories hidden inside the Bible's ordinary things, come back and pull up a chair. There is always room at the table, and there is a good deal more in a loaf of bread than first meets the eye.